All right, I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight to the Comedy Factory Comedy Chat. We've got two great guests on our Zoom comedy show tonight. We've got Charlie Hall, co-founder of Periwinkles Comedy Club in Providence, first comic inducted into Rhode Island Comedy Hall of Fame, 2012. Been on Star Search, Joan Rivers Show, Evening at the Improv, Caroline's Comedy Hour, America's Funniest People, and the MTV Half-Hour Comedy Hour. He's worked with Seinfeld, Sam Kinison, Jon Stewart, creator of the long-running Ocean State Follies that was on for years, longest run in the state. Award-winning political cartoonist. And we have Dave Kane. Dave Kane.
You forgot the fact that I wrote the state song of Rhode Island.
I forgot that. What's the name of the state song of Rhode Island?
Rhode Island.
Goes your old lady.
What is it, Charlie?
It's called Rhode Island's It For Me.
I heard the song, so I shouldn't have forgot that. Yeah. But then and we got Dave Kane.
I'm confused. He said he had two great guests on tonight. Are we here the wrong night? Oh, I'm sorry. No, I guess we're not.
Dave's a great radio talk show host. I've heard him many times. A comedian, performance artist, author. He created a character, Father Misgivings, an Irish Catholic priest. It's a very entertaining one-man play. I've seen Dave do Father Misgivings. Excellent. He authored a book, his first published book in 2006, 41 Signs of Hope. And he was nicknamed the Pitbull of Comedy.
Charlie gave
in the 1980s during his time as a comic. So yeah. It's great to have Charlie Hall and Dave Kane on tonight.
Hi, John.
Thanks for coming on, guys.
Hey.
Where's the audience?
We're
the audience. So we'll start with Charlie. How did you co-founded Periwinkles Comedy Club? What year was that around? And
let's see. I graduate RISD in '78, and then in about '80, the arcade downtown Providence opens up again, refurbished, and there's a restaurant there called Noah's Arcade.
Yeah.
And they are doing a weekly talent night on like Thursday nights. And I had dabbled in comedy in college, kind of got it in my blood. So I went down there one night, and who is there but my good buddy Frank O'Donnell. And Frank is like the co-host of this event for radio station JB 105. Frank had gone to Providence College, and we meet up at this thing, and both of us are trying to become comedians. And a comedy had gotten a rebirth over the years, ever since Stephen Wright in Boston had gotten on the Johnny Carson show. And like twice. He did so great the first time, he came on the second time. And just that one performance kind of got things going in Boston, and they kind of spread to Rhode Island. And so Frank and I talked the owner, a guy named Mike Kent, owned a lot of nightclubs, to do a comedy night. He goes, I don't want to do a comedy night. He had bought this place, and he renamed it Periwinkles. And I went to him one day, and I made up a flyer. I had a look. I made up a flyer, Mr. Kent, and and we can use my barn, and my mom can make all the costumes. And he says, "All right, I'll give you guys one night to see how you do, Frank and I." And we packed the place, and then from then on, Periwinkles was synonymous with comedy for over a dozen years, and that's where Frank and I met. And eventually, I met Dave Kane, I met you, and a lot of the other comics that you've had on your fine show.
Yep. I was there in '83. I went to the arcade. I got up once and did really well, and then I bombed horribly twice, and I stayed away for 8 years. I came back when it was above the keg room. Around '91, I came back.
And was I the host?
I took Frank O'Donnell's class at the Learning Connection. And then you were there, Frank was there. Yeah. And I was just getting in the door when, unfortunately, Periwinkles closed. I had done 2 Frank Santos shows, and you booked me to host a weekend. I was so excited. It was around '91, '92, and then unfortunately, they closed. But tell us some stories, you guys. Because I was only there 3 times in the '80s. What was it like, and how many comics came through there? The big comics, and
Well, let's see. Like I said, it was called Noah's Arcade, and it was just a talent night. And at the end of the show, it's all different talents. And there were all a bunch of regulars. And one of the regulars was a guy named Joe Cabral. And Joe Cabral would do his echo voice, right? Say, bye. I can't even do it. He does this great echo voice, and the audience, you would win by applause. He won almost every week because that oh say can you see was just so powerful and so cool. And he would do this with no microphone in the middle of the audience, so he would win every single week. But then this is when Frank and I, when the new owners took over, Frank and I said, can we kind of make it a comedy club? And so it became an open mic night. This is how I learned comedy. That's how I kind of grew very quickly. I got to host my own night there every single week. Frank was doing the same thing. And there are comics coming out of the woodwork, like a guy named Ed Del Grande and David DiLorenzo, God rest his soul, Brian Deary, Poppy Champlin, and this
Tom Cotter.
Tom Cotter and Al Ducharme. And this one guy walks in, kind of a little older than some of us, but quite glib. And that was the comedy pitbull, David Kane.
I did Perrotta's act before he did.
And somehow Dave and I kind of hit it off. We had this very similar sense of humor. And we became great friends. And Dave does radio, and he was doing some TV, and we kind of crisscrossed in media. But Periwinkles was like, it was such a great growing ground. It was, you see some of these TV shows on the air, revolving around comedy clubs. And, the same people would come, Rick Perrotta, and we come in. I remember coming in many times and bombing. I was at the beginning, I was dirty. You learn how to kind of clean up your act a little bit. But it was a great learning process to have your own night every week to try it out. And then, I see the kids today. How do you become a comic? It's tough these days. It's impossible these days right now.
I think it's a lot harder now. It's a lot harder now, yeah.
Yeah, just let me get a sip of water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never drink on an empty head, Charlie.
And then it continued on for years. There were a couple of funny stories, but now, Dave, do you remember the first time that you performed at Periwinkles?
Well, yeah. Well, actually, you and I met. You remember this? I was on the air in Fall River at WSAR, and I had heard about Periwinkles, and I called you guys to come in to be on the air with me. It was you and Frank and Poppy came in to the station. You were on my radio show.
Oh.
And then I said, I'm going to go down and try it. And the following, was it Thursday nights or Wednesday? It was Thursdays, right?
I think Thursdays, yeah.
Yeah. And I went down there and tried. I don't remember exactly. I did okay, I guess. But you talked about being dirty. Maybe we should tell John the F word story. Do you think we
No. Can you tell that?
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah, I can tell a clean version.
John, is this show rated R? Or
well, give me the clean version.
Okay, I'll give him he'll have to edit. You'll like this, John. Mike Kent, when it was Periwinkle. Have you met Mike Kent?
Yeah, I've met him in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, he's a very interesting guy. And Charlie remembers this, I'm sure. I came into Periwinkles one night, and Charlie was standing there. And when I walked in, he came up to me. And what'd you say, Charlie?
I said, all the comics have been using the F word a lot, and Mike doesn't like it. So Mike has started a new no F word show. You can't say the F word. Now, of course, every comic in the world was using this like every other word.
It was their act. That was their act. And so for some reason, he didn't say keep it down. Blah, blah. He said none. So, and remember, all the new comics were over in the corner, John. And they were suicidal. They were afraid. They were crying.
Oh man!
Because they didn't have an act. I just took it. So I said to Charlie, let me go up first. So Charlie said, no, listen, I'm not. He will fire you. He said, remember Charlie? He said to me, no, I'm telling you, he will fire you. He's not kidding around. And I said, come on, let me go up first. So Charlie goes up and he opens the show, and then he introduces me. So I get up and I say, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Periwinkles. The owner of Periwinkles is here, Mike Kent. Now, Mike's wife was here, and Mike's brother and his wife were there. They were both there.
Yeah.
And I said, I just got to tell you that they have a brand new rule here at Periwinkles. It's the no F word rule. Now, am I on camera, by the way?
Yeah.
All right, because I'm looking at Charlie. That's why I'm at. So I said, there's no F word rule. And the whole audience, John, went, oh, no. What? Oh, they were like shocked. I said, well, they said I can't say the F word, but they didn't say you couldn't say the F word. I said, so when I throw my hand up, you guys put it in for me. So I said, I'm walking down the street and I see this guy I really hate, and I yell across the street, yo, and the whole audience screams the word. And this went on maybe about 4 minutes. It wasn't long. And they were all roaring. It got funnier and funnier. And right then, at the end of my act, Charlie came up and announced that they had dropped the F word rule. it was gone. And that's
gone. You got rid of it, Dave. Huh?
Yeah, I got rid of it. That took care of that. And then I didn't use it. I didn't even use that in my act. Did I, Charles? I don't even think I used it.
Well, you didn't finish the story, David.
Huh?
You didn't finish the story.
Oh, you mean when Periwinkles closed? You mean that one?
No. You said, look, I can't say the F word.
No, you can't say that. You can't say that. It's the clean version. Okay. I used it, John, I used a scenario. I said, I can't say the F word, but I can say my girlfriend's blah. That's all I could say. And they all roared at that because it was such an outrageous statement.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you after we tape. And so that's how it ended. But when Periwinkles closed, were you there, John? When we closed above?
I was there when they closed. I was at the keg room there.
It was right, exactly.
A bunch of comics came out, and I was there. Was one of them.
Rick Perrotta was there that night. He was one of the original guys. Yeah. He came up to me and said to me that night, "You've got to tell this F word story." And I said, "It's not going to be funny." And you know why? Because in the keg room, over the cash register was a neon sign that said "Time to Bank." And so it wouldn't have been as funny. But in those short number of years, 10 or 12, whatever it was, that outrageous word was now in a neon sign over the cash register. So
are you serious?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
hey,
so it shows how things change. Huh?
Were you did you co-host sometimes for Dialing for Dollars?
Oh, yeah, I did a lot of Dialing for Dollars.
I remember you doing Dialing for Dollars. George Allen used to do it. He used to fill in for him.
I'm going to tell you a George Allen story. Now, I'm sorry you mentioned that because I'm going to tell, and this is a true story Charlie knows. Yeah. I used to fill in for George Allen, and Gary DeGrade did it in the mornings, too. And I filled in for them. Anyway, I always filled in for George for Dialing for Dollars. When George passed away, he had his wake, and everybody was saying to me when he passed, "Oh, you're going to go fill in for George? You're going to go get in the coffin for him and all that other stuff." Pretty rude. And when I went to his funeral, I walked up, I took off my coat, I signed the book, and I started to walk into the room, and I had on a sweater and a shirt without a tie.
Right.
George Allen was in the coffin with an almost identical sweater and shirt without a tie.
Oh, man.
And I panicked. I thought, someone's going to think I did this on purpose, that I was making fun of him. So I threw my coat back on, and the whole rest of the night I left my trench coat on because anybody wanted anybody to see me like that. That's my George Allen story.
And an interesting tidbit to that story, George was buried 6 feet from the top.
That's exactly right.
6 from the top. Remember?
You know the count from the mouth.
Bottom,
Yes,
6 from the top. Yeah. That's how you would find a phone number, right?
So Charlie, when Periwinkles, when did it start where you guys did weekends and started having headliners like Lenny Clark and guys like that? I mean, at some point you went from doing the once a week night, your show, Frank's show, and then it went to the weekends eventually, right?
Right.
When
Then we started doing the weekends. I don't know, about less than a year.
It was so successful that they started doing the weekends.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was nothing like that. It was a comedy club, and the Periwinkles was not a place that you would. It was like squeezing a round peg into a square hole. It wasn't a perfectly. There was a back area and a bar, and there was big columns in the way. But we did what we could. We fitted as many people as we could, and then I ended up making these big like walls out of giant foam 8x4 foot pieces of foam you can get at Home Depot, and I got like 8 of them and made this big kind of a outlet into the center of the arcade, so we could get in close to 200 people if we had to. And then, so now the professionals are coming down. So it's like, it's 2 acts from Boston and an opener from Rhode Island. And over the years, we got some great acts. Steve Wright came down one night.
Kevin Meaney,
of course.
He was great.
One time, my booker, who is Barry Katz, he's on LA now, he goes, I got this new kid. You always talk funny, but I got this new kid. He's killing everywhere. He's going to come in and do 10 minutes for you this weekend. I'm like, fine. What's his name? His name is Dave Chappelle.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dave Chappelle came doing 10-minute guest sets one weekend, as did who else?
Well, tell him about your open mic from PC.
Yeah, I'll tell him. I'll get to that. But you know the TV Jeff Garner I think that's his name. He stars in the Goldbergs.
Garland, I think.
Jeff Garland.
Yeah, he's on Curb Your Enthusiasm too.
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
He would come. Jon Stewart, before Jon Stewart was big. Rob Schneider, the copy man, making copies. Remember Rob Schneider?
Yeah.
From SNL.
Lenny Clark and you know all the big wigs came, and it's fun to see how it progressed.
Adam Sandler came, right? Didn't Adam Sandler come too?
No, Adam Sandler.
Sandler didn't come.
No.
And can't believe Chappelle was there. Wow.
Yeah, he was there.
Jon Stewart. Wow.
Yeah, there's a few other ones, but this is when we were all just kind of starting out. And then one day, we had this guy named Chance Langton, Boston guy, Chance Langton. Used to play the guitar. Right? Yeah. His name was Chance. He used to sing, all we are saying is give Chance a piece. So, but he was booking rooms in Boston, and he says to me, do you work outside of Rhode Island? I was like, I would. And he hired me to work someplace in the Cape, and that's when I started to work in Boston and the whole New England network. And then a lot of the other people followed behind me. Frank started the work, and all of a sudden now all the Rhode Island guys are getting work in Boston. But there is this one story I have to tell you of the open mic night, and this is the reason why I thought Dave would be fun to have here. He doesn't remember this. So there's an actress named Janine Garofalo. Do we all know? I should have a picture. Janine Garofalo. She's an actress, short, dark hair, from the Boston. Yeah.
I've seen her. I've seen a couple.
She wasn't from Boston, Charlie. She was going to PC.
PC.
She came in drunk one night.
Yeah. So we're doing the funniest person in Rhode Island contest. Showtime TV, cable TV, had sponsored this contest every year, and every year somebody won it from each state. And every year I would tape all the comedians and send it in, and we'd all wait for like 3 or 4 weeks. I wonder who got it. So one night maybe the third year of it, we're doing the show, and I'm at Periwinkles, and towards the end of the show, in walks this Janine Garofalo, drunk out of her mind. She had gone to PC, and of course, being drunk was a requirement at PC in those days.
Right. Yeah.
She walks in with, I don't know, 5 or 6 people. She goes, she has like a cigarette in her hand. Can I come in and do this contest? I'm like, I'm sorry, it's over now. We're over in like a half an hour. She goes, I have 7 people with me. Come on in.
Because Charlie got the door. That's why.
Yeah. Now, Dave doesn't remember this, but Dave Kane was actually the host of this show. So up until then, I don't know. It's the regulars are in there, including Tom Carter and Al Ducharme, and so Dave brings her up, and she gets on stage, and she has this cigarette, and she's drunk. The cigarette has an ash, an inch ash on it that hasn't dropped yet. The cigarette had gone out, and I don't know how this ash hadn't dropped. And she gets on stage, and she's drunk, and the crowd doesn't even know what's going on, and the crowd is finding this hysterical, not because of her material, which she had written on her cuff of her either of her arm or of her shirt, and just the fact that she was drunk and trying to do these lines, and it was hysterical. In fact, you even hear me on this tape going, she's hysterical. And so she does her 10-minute set, and so for months we're going, who won? Nobody knows who won, and then it finally comes out. Janine Garofalo walked into Periwinkles drunk and became the funniest person in Rhode Island for that year, and she's done interviews like in Esquire magazine. So I heard you won a comedy contest in Rhode Island. She's like, come on, it's Rhode Island. Is it really not big? And so if it wasn't for me, if I don't say yes to her, she never does comedy. She never, by the way, she bombed every other time afterwards. When she became a comic, she was horrible. A couple of times we had to replace her.
Well, she became a comedic actress. I mean, that's different than a comic, right?
No, before that, she was a stand-up comic right after that.
Yeah.
And then she has a fairly successful career in movies. This is one about cats and dogs.
She hasn't done much. I don't think she's done much in a while. I haven't seen her in a while. I know she did some stuff I saw, but
yeah, she was on a liberal radio station that was taking on Rush many years ago, but it didn't only lasted about 2.5 hours. So that was one of the funny stories from Periwinkles. We used to have the Comedy Channel come down, and the Comedy Channel, this is when the Comedy Channel was almost like MTV. They would show clips of comedians. Let's hear what the comics have to say about dogs. And they'd show this clip and that clip and this clip and that clip. And it was like MTV in those days. And they held content. Who's the guy who does Sniglets? Rich Hall? Is that a comic? Dave?
Rich Hall is a comic.
Yeah, Rich Hall was on Saturday Night Live.
I'm not familiar with Sniglets, though,
Yeah, he used to do Sniglets, right? Something about Sniglets. Some funny words he used to use. And so we always had contests. And I know they had one contest where the winner got to be the opening act for Kool and the Gang at the Warwick Musical Theater. None of us had worked there. And we had a contest, and I won. And I got to open up for Kool and the Gang. So I go down to the Warwick tent, and I'm nervous. And folks, we have Kool and the Gang, but first we have this comedian. Please welcome Charlie Hall. And I get up on stage, and it's one of those nights, John, that you live for. They laughed at everything, and just waves of laughter. It's 3,000 people. You're in the middle. The stage is turning, and you're going against the flow. You feel like a salmon going upstream sometimes. And it was great. It was just great. And then after that, they had other people open up, Eddie Regine and Frank O'Donnell. And so every year I would work 3 or 4 times over there because I was clean. You had to be clean. none of this F-word stuff that David was doing in those days.
I saw on a website that you opened at the Warwick Musical Theater more times than anybody else.
That's true. Larry Bonoff.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Larry Bonoff. Because sometimes he would have me 3, 4, 5 times a year. And once on my birthday, about 5 o'clock, about 6 o'clock at night, the phone rings. And I'm at a birthday celebration at a restaurant with 3 or 4 friends. And it's Larry Bonoff who ran the show. Charlie, it's Larry Bonoff. I need you. I need you to come up here. I need an opening act for Jerry Seinfeld. What? I used to love Jerry Seinfeld. I loved the fact that he would do his act live. You know, not even in a club. You'd see him on TV. You know, he had to be clean, but he was always clean. And I just loved this guy. I was dying to open up for him. And the opening act was caught in traffic. And so, Charlie, you got to come up here. So I Zoom for my party. I go up there, and I'm waiting around, and the opening act shows up. And yeah, he gave me like $100 anyway, and for helping him out. And so he was a good friend. He used to have me there like whenever he could. Laura Branigan, Natalie Cole, Chicago, just tons and tons of acts. It was great. It was the gig. Yeah.
That's awesome. You did wind up working with Jerry Seinfeld at some point. I remember you telling me a while back you worked with him in Connecticut, I think.
Well, yes. I befriended some people in Connecticut. I think through Frank Santos, the hypnotist, the father, who is still who is up in heaven with Dave DiLorenzo. I'm sure David's opening up for him up there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a new comedy club in New Haven called Joker's Wild.
Oh, I performed there. Yeah.
Yeah, but when it kind of first opened, I knew the guy who was kind of running it. I'm like, can you get me to open up for Jerry Seinfeld? You bet. So I opened up for Jerry Seinfeld. And he's not even there when I bring him up. The first show, he's not even. So the show had started. I was the host. I was the middle act. And or at one point, I was the host. And I hadn't met him. And so I tried to give him this intro. Folks, please welcome Jerry Seinfeld. And as we pass, he looks at my hair. He goes, "Is that your real hair? Is that it?" And he goes, "Yes, it's my real hair. I guess I had a big like afro type of thing." And he goes, "Folks, let's hear for Charlie Hall." And that is his real hair. And we ended up working the whole weekend together, of course. And then he took me and the other act out to lunch, and we talked shop. And I asked him why he works clean. He said he likes the challenge of it. By the way, he says the F word every other word when he's off stage. But he likes, and I learned a lesson from that, and I tried to spread that wealth of wisdom to the other comics. One comic I said was a guy named Joe Rogan. This guy Joe Rogan was filthy, and I said, "Look, I just had lunch with Jerry Seinfeld. You're going to go nowhere with your filthy act. It's gross. It's disgusting. I can't even book you at my club. That's how disgusting you are." And he said, "All right, fine." And 6 months later, he had his own special on HBO. 2 months after that, he's on News Talk, whatever. What's it called? News Radio or something?
News Radio, yeah.
Yeah, and he's on the what's the thing with the eating the crap? The
Fear Factor.
The Fear Factor, and now he has like maybe one of the largest cable kind of blog type shows. His
podcast, I heard Spotify just gave him $100 million to have his podcast. That's what I read recently. Spotify.
Right. So
it's a podcast.
Yeah. So that's, so take it for what it's worth when somebody says be clean, because you know what, there are people who are, there was Eddie Murphy and there was Red Fox. You don't have to be. There's no set way to do comedy. We all do it our own way. Seinfeld
did it. He was clean. Now, did you work with Sam Kinison?
Yes. Then I knew the owner of the Living Room, Randy Hine. And,
I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had me open up for Warren Zevon once.
Oh, wow.
And Warren Zevon was an hour and a half late. And the place is packed. we'll get to Dave any second now. The place is packed, and Warren Zevon is an hour and a half late. He finally shows up. They said, Warren Zevon's here. Yay! But first we have a comedian. Please welcome Charlie Hall. They were throwing cups of beer at me. And I'm doing my act because I wanted to get paid. And that, boo, you suck. And that's from my parents. And but they were throwing cups of beer at me. And so, but he goes, I'll hire you again. And I opened up for Sam Kinison. And I
went with you that night.
You were there?
It was down to a library. Downtown.
Yeah. So
I went with you that night.
And I went to knock on the door, and Sam opens up. I'm like, hi, Sam, I'm Charlie Hall. I'm going to be your opening act. He goes, hi, Charlie, how are you? You want to come in and do some oxygen? They were doing oxygen. They had the masks of oxygen. And I guess it made them feel kind of high without having to get high. And so that was great too. I loved him, the way he screamed and the sound of his voice. So there's enough stories right there for now. How about Dave?
How about Dave? You got a story, Dave?
I forgot what we were talking about. There's a lot of things. I opened for Larry Bunoff. I had a big controversy when I first started doing Father Misgivings. I got blown out of cellos, and it was a front page story in the Journal. It was a huge deal.
Why?
And because somebody was offended without seeing the show. That's usually how it goes. Charlie. And
Yes.
It was funny because Larry Bunoff called me and said, Art Garfunkel's coming in. I need an opening act and I want to use you. And I said, Larry, have you looked at the Journal? And he said, yeah, I looked at the Journal. That's why I want you to come in. I want you to do the priest. So I went, and it was really interesting. As a performer, you might appreciate this because there was a lot. There was a lot of controversy about this. It was all over the state. And then he put me up on that little, what's that marquee the marquee they had at the Warwick tent?
Yeah.
Art Garfunkel, it said Father Misgivings.
Right.
Under his name. So they were like, and he told me he sold more tickets after he announced that. And I was shocked.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it.
That's
I thought,
great.
I'm going to have a good crowd anyway because, the big name.
Well, what the heck? What the heck? God is your manager.
That's exactly right. So I go walking. And so they introduced me. And I didn't use the pre-recorded intro. I just walked in and stood. I did. I walked up and stood at the podium. Now there's like a 2 or 3 beat that I wait for the applause to die down and, have a moment of silence before I do my first line. Well, I was waiting for this moment of silence, and I guess somebody in the audience thought that I was nervous, and they started the applause again, and they all applauded again, which I thought was really, really cool. I realized what they had done, and I killed them that night, because they wanted to see it,
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the other one, John, with Father Misgivings. Charlie was very instrumental in putting Misgivings up.
Don't blame me.
I had done this character, started on radio, and I called my friend Charlie Jeffords. You know the name Charlie Jeffords?
Oh yeah, I remember Charlie Jeffords.
Well, he was doing a talk show on the old WJAR radio, and he was dying, and nobody was calling, and he's feeling. So to help him out, I called from another studio, and I did it with an Irish accent. And I called him, and I was talking to him like this and trying to help him out, And he was doing a thing called Swap Shop. Have you ever heard one of those, John? Swap Shop is when people call up and say, I want to sell my garden furniture, and here's my phone number, and I want $20. Or somebody will call up and say, I'm looking to buy something. Yeah. So I called Charlie, and he said, I said, I'd like to buy, if you don't mind, one of those big, heavy paper cutters with the big blade. You put the paper on it, and you slam the blade down. And he said, oh, he said, really? He said, and he said, well, Father, he said, what? I told him I was a priest from the local parish. And he said, well, what are you going to use it for? I said, Jewish baptisms. Well, that never made it on the air, of course, because this was the 70s, you know. They took it off the air. And then one day, Charlie said to me, Charlie Jeffords said to me, Father, I don't think we know your name. And I didn't have a name. I hadn't thought about that. And the only person I could think of was Barry Fitzgerald, the movie Going My Way. And Father, that character's name was Fitzgibbons. And the first word that came to me was misgivings. And I said, my name was Father Patrick Aloysius Misgivings, and that's how it started. And then I was down at the beach house one afternoon, and the journal, Late Night Catechism was coming to the PPAC with the nun. You know? Yeah. And I said, gee, nobody's ever done a dinner theater with a priest. So I called Charlie, who, of course, was the mastermind of Ocean State Follies. Yeah. And I called him and said, what do you think if we put something together? We did the priest. He said, oh, it's great. That's great. Let's do it. So a few months later, we talked to each other. I was in his place, and we started to write the show. And the phone rang, and it was Luigi's Restaurant in Johnson.
Yeah, Ralph.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said to Charlie, I'm looking for something for Christmas time. Now, Charlie had already been booked there. He had booked like 3 or 4 shows for Christmas. And he wanted a different act. And Charlie said, oh, I got a great brand new act. It's with an Irish Catholic priest, and it's terrific. He said, do you want that? And Ralph said, yeah, okay, I'll take it.
But it
hadn't even been written. No, it hadn't even been written. And he hung up the phone. He said, okay, you got 3 dates in December.
Holy cow.
I was told. Now, here's the other thing. Now, because it's about stand-up comedy, it's not too inside baseball, I guess, to tell this. But, you know, with stand-up comedy, as you know, John, if you're not doing well, if the audience isn't with you, you can say, oh, well, my time's up, and you can get the hell out of it. You can't do it with a dinner theater. People have paid $40 or whatever it is to have a meal and an hour change show. And
you got to do your time. You got to do your time.
Yeah, Charlie, Misgivings was an hour and a half when we first wrote it.
Yeah.
It was an hour and a half. So I got up and I was so panicked because I thought if I start to bomb, I got to stand there and do the rest of it for an hour and a half. You can't get away. It was horrible, horrible fear. It was the only time I've ever been fearful going on stage. The only time in my career.
And how did it go? How did those 3 shows go in December at Luigi's?
Killed them. The very first show, right, Charles? They loved it from the beginning. I've had maybe 1 or 2, 3 tough shows, but that show scores every time. Every time.
How long have you been doing Misgivings, Dave?
92, 91 or 92.
Wow.
So, yeah. So 35, 40 years, almost 35 years. And, I mean, we've cut it down a little bit and changed a couple of minor things.
Yeah.
I don't do any references to altar boys at all.
Yeah.
Because it's not funny and you know,
whatever that's going on,
I don't want the audience to be even thinking about it, so there's no reference to that. But other than that, we cover a lot. And Charlie and I have written a lot of stuff together. And remember the argument we had about how my first announcement was, I did the announcements. I said the Holy Name Society will meeting under a pseudonym, and Charlie said they're not going to know what a pseudonym is. Remember?
Yeah.
And we went back and forth about, I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And so that night when I did the line, everybody laughed at pseudonym. And after they laughed, I heard Charlie in the back laughing again because I was right about pseudonym. Since then, I've changed it to an alias, by the way. I changed the word to alias. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how Misgivings is.
Well, then let's bring this up just quickly to the current day, not so current.
Yeah.
Dave had an idea for the second show, a second show where he would be doing jokes that his father told him. Right?
Yeah.
And these are the great Irish jokes you've heard many times. you hear a great storyteller on Merv Griffin or Johnny Carson. And
well, you've heard them because you're a comedian. A lot of people haven't. But go ahead.
Yeah. So Dave's like, yeah, I got this idea for the show. Dave's had this idea for the show for 5 years.
Easy. More.
Until one day I said, for crying out loud, do the show. Come on, I'll help you, whatever. And his wife is saying the same thing. And we forced Dave to sit down and to put together this Irish show. And how tough could it be? Just get little index cards and write the jokes down, and you can even look at them if you want, and go out and do the best of the borscht world, you know, of the what do they call the
Irish stew?
Was it the borscht belt? What do they call it?
Yeah, that was. You could do it as Irish stew. Yeah. Right.
And that show is almost just as funny. You had it. I booked you one time at the clubhouse I was staying at, and they just loved it. Yes, he's doing some of the older jokes.
Sure.
But to tell them the right way. There's a certain art of telling these jokes the right way and dealing with the crowd and the timing. And David has always had that. And that show was also a big success.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's like stealing your money. I love it. I really do. Yeah. I have much more fun than they do. You know?
Yeah.
I miss performing. It's gonna be a little while before things come back. You know, little by little they might, but I think it's gonna be a while.
Yeah. Now we're getting paid for this, right?
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld's gonna send us a check.
John, have you seen the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel yet?
No, I heard about it though. I heard it's great.
It's tremendous. You'll love it. As a comedian, you will love it. Really good. And the other thing I was telling Charlie about is on YouTube, if you go, you'll find Caesar's writers, Sid Caesar, and all of the writers from the Show of Shows are on. It's a 2-part thing that is really great. It really is great. It tells all about how they did things and what went on there, and it's really
What's it called?
Caesar's Writers.
Caesar's Writers.
Yeah, and it's 2-part. It's based on, it's about Sid Caesar, and I mean Larry Gelbart is there, and Neil Simon, and Mel Brooks, and Carl Reiner, and you name it. It's just terrific, and they're all talking about writing the Show of Shows.
Yeah, I remember seeing clips of that. That was an unbelievable show.
I'm old enough to remember seeing it live.
Yeah, you got a few years on me, Dave. I didn't see it live. I didn't see it live.
Yeah.
I love having you guys on because we're talking about a lot of old Periwinkles and Misgivings and all different things. It's cool, talking about all this stuff.
It is very rewarding over the years. Some years ago, I got a call from Tom Carter. Now, Tom Carter, I happened to push a couple of people on stage. They would whisper in my ear off stage. They'd be comedy groupies. I'm like, why don't you get up there? Well, I don't know, maybe. Come on, get up there. And people like Tom Carter was one, and Rick Perrotta was another one. Rick's from Lincoln. But Tom Carter moved to New York and went around the circuit, won a San Francisco comedy competition. He really progressed quickly. And so one day he calls me up. He says, Charlie, I'm going to be on Jay Leno in about an hour. They taped it. He goes, I want you to watch because one of the reasons I got this gig is because of you. These are nice things to say. Because I was the host and I used to tell him and I used to give him my opinion, whatever. And so it's always nice to kind of hear that. And I watched him on Jay Leno that night and he killed. And he went on to be in the finals of America's Got Talent. He lost to a dog act.
I know.
Well, the dog was funny though. You got to admit. He really was funny.
Yeah,
Tom Carter's a great. He's a great guy. Yeah, I used to book him in the mid-'90s. Tom Carter. I used to book Bill Burr, Tom Carter, Bob Marley from Maine. These guys were coming up. Yeah, one show I had Tom Carter and Bob Marley from Maine. I had them back to back at the Great Imposter. Remember we used to do that room in our work, Charlie, Italian restaurant.
Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, Tom Carter was he was hilarious. I always thought he was really funny.
Well, you know, I want to say something here because it's nice to be modest, but Charlie and Frank O'Donnell, if they had not started Periwinkles, so many of the comedians that people now see would be, you know, kicking a foot press or delivering a pizza someplace. I mean, it's really terrific that they had gotten the chance to get up in front of an audience. That's a very rare opportunity to be able to try material and be exposed to good nights and bad nights. And if it weren't for the work that Charlie and Frank did and the encouragement that they gave, and they did it a lot. Charlie and I used to stand in the back of Periwinkles when you'd have a new open micer, and whatever it sounded like was supposed to be a laugh, Charlie and I would go, ah! We try to, you know, get the audience moving and encourage them. But if it weren't for that, so many people would never, you'd never have heard of them. And I think it's a great contribution, Charlie, and you should feel really, really good about it.
And you know what? Speaking of Frank O'Donnell, who, by the way, also went off and taught comics. He taught comedy at various places.
I took his class at the Learning Connection, and
So
you guys were both. Yeah, you guys were both there when I came in '91, and that Periwinkles inspired me. Even though it wound up closing, I got the fever for comedy, and I just started putting my stuff together. But you guys, you and Frank helped me immensely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You really did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always good to hear stuff like that. I mean, who knows how our lives change? If Mike Kent says to me, "No, you're not going to do comedy here. I want to do it," which is what he said at the.
Yep.
I don't know if my life would be the same. You know, it's
funny how things go like that. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, by the way, Frank and I are working again tomorrow night. Online, just like this, we're doing a show for the Toro Club, and we're scared to death. We don't know how it's going to be. There's no audience. There's nobody. Well, there's no audience. There's dozens of people watching.
A Zoom audience.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of making a laugh track or inviting friends over here. Yeah. And also, so now, John, I had taken years off of comedy, and I was doing the Ocean's Day Follies, and I started to come back and do a comedy about a year ago or so. And you were nice enough to give me guest sets all around at different gigs. And then one day I was with my dear friend Doreen Collins. You know Doreen, one of my cast members, and sitting at her house, and her husband, and I'm like, I don't know, I feel old. I'm not sure if the crowd relates to me. I need a hearing aid, and I feel it just I'm losing my hair. And Doreen's husband says, that could be your act. That could be your show. I'm like, yes. So Doreen and I together wrote a show called Aging Disgracefully. And it was doing gangbusters. We sold out our last 8 or 9 shows, and then the virus hit, just killing everything. But it's been fun working with Doreen. And why do I bring this up? Because Doreen and I have just put together a video. It's a song parody about the COVID thing called "I Will Survive." Okay,
it's
I
hilarious.
Will Survive. And we just posted it today. And this video, there's a funny video that I made, and she sang it. I did a couple of things on it. And so if you go to my Facebook page, Charlie Hall's Facebook page, or Doreen Collins, you can. I know that I gave it to Doreen today at like 12 o'clock. An hour later, she calls up and she goes, "There's been like 100 views already." So it's very funny. I urge you guys to go have some. If you're stuck at home with the whole COVID thing, go have a couple of chuckles and find "I Will Survive." And it's also on YouTube.
Yeah, it's excellent. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm doing one right now. I don't have a cast. Like Ocean's Day Follies, there's no cast. We're stuck at home, so I've been making like puppets and to sing my little funny songs. And I have a good buddy of mine, Mark Colazzi. He's singing a song I wrote the musical Oklahoma, Oklahoma, la, 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 la. So I wrote, Oldie, there's a scent of wieners in the air. And I got this wiener puppet doing it, and I'll be debuting that very shortly, and a bunch of other stuff. So I've been very creative, even though this flu has kind of been front and center in all of our lives and keeping us from doing our livelihood, really. And we're like the last ones to come back because the entertainers seem to be on the caboose here. You're staying home. I mean, who knows how long it's going to take for this vaccine? John, you may have this online show for a long, long time.
I thought of starting it because I get to see comedians, my friends, and we can talk about old times and different things, and it's been interesting. I've enjoyed it, and I'm probably going to keep doing it, and definitely until we can get back on stage,
Oh, it could be a springboard, to like late night, and then to late night, and then to the Tonight Show, and you're going to be like the host. You're the next hot host.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Charlie, but
you could call it when there's nothing else to freaking watch.
Yeah, that's what it is. We've been having fun though. I put it on Facebook, and then I put it on my Comedy Factory page, and it gets quite a few views, and people tell me they enjoy it. They enjoy watching it. I have different guests on. You guys have been very interesting. I've enjoyed this I enjoy it myself, and then I wind up watching it again sometime. I enjoy it. I love listening to you guys and the stories. I
get residual payments, so if you watch it again, I expect another check.
I was just thinking of, Dave and I. Dave like calls me almost every day.
I'm sorry, Charlie.
Yeah, and we have two personalities that kind of jive. We find the same things funny. It is always hysterical to be with Dave. He's just like me. I'm always out in the real world. I'm always cracking jokes. But one of the first times I went out with Dave, we went out to a restaurant, and waitresses were particularly grist for his comedy mill. And so we'd be out some coffee place, and this waitress would come up, just wearing a name tag. And she goes, "Can I get you guys something?" And we order something. And Dave goes, "Oh, Cheryl, what's your other one called?" Right around the boob. And we would do stuff like that all the time.
I'm allowed just to entertain ourselves. I remember, my son Nicky used to do all of my one-liners. He had a whole list of them. Like something would crash in the restaurant, I'd say, "Just put that down anywhere."
Right.
Or they'd say, "Are you ready to order?" I'd say, "No, we're going to try to request. We don't want to be too pushy." A bunch of stuff like that.
The last time he did this, I went. I was living in North Providence. I live in East Greenwich now.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, thank you. Tell me about it, Buffy.
And I'd gone to like Miracle Ear because I lost half my hearing. This is like, I don't know, 7 months ago maybe. Was it within a year? Yeah. And so I made an appointment at Miracle Ear, and I forgot to go. And then I made another one, and I forgot to go. And then I got to go back. And David goes, "Come on, I'll go with you." So Dave picked me up at my house. We drive the 2 minutes to the Miracle Ear place, and Dave says, "Look, here's what we'll do." And Dave, what did you tell me to do?
I don't remember this.
He said, "What about?" He said, "I'm gonna go in there, and I'm gonna open the door, and I'm gonna treat you like a little kid. You get in here. You get right now.
Yeah.
You get out there and you face the music.
You tell these people how sorry you are.
Right.
Look ashamed."
Dave opens the door. There's a few people in the waiting room, and he's "Come, you!" And he's opening the door. He's halfway in, and then no one knows what's going on. They probably expect to see a 6-year-old kid, and I come wandering in very sheepishly. "I'm sorry, Dad." And so sometimes. Sometimes you say to yourself, "Geez, wouldn't it be funny if I did this?" Dave and I used to always do this. We always do the things that we would talk about. We always drove the waiting staffs crazy.
Yeah, we had a good time. Yeah, and I do what Charlie suggests. I'm not wearing pants. Is that as an example? Are you wearing your pants, Charlie? You told me you weren't going to wear pants.
Right now?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, never mind. Yeah.
That's crazy.
But it's been fun. It's been fun. It's a great time. John, how do you decide what to use for material?
In my act when I'm on
not
stage?
talking about, yeah, I'm talking about your opening stuff. I saw you the other day on something you did in New Bedford, on a TV show in New Bedford, and you have a couple of opening things and stuff.
I basically work Charlie knows I work the audience. If I don't have an audience, I'm doing a TV spot. Then I've done a few access cable shows. I did the Steve Cato show and a late night New England Michael Pettit, stuff like that. And I just clean it up, and I got the material I use,
Well, how do you decide what material? Is this stuff you've written or?
Yeah, I got some stuff. I'm not a great writer, but some stuff I've written that I can use for short sets. Yeah. But when I do a longer set, I do 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Most of it's crowd work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's killing me. If somebody said to me, do a Zoom show, I work the crowd. I mean, I don't know how I would do a Zoom show.
It's like doing a tennis match with nobody on the other side of the net. I know.
Yeah. So I've kind of said to myself, you know what? I'm going to do these Zoom comedy talk shows, and make them entertaining, hopefully. And I think I've had some great guests on, like you guys. It's been entertaining, and I'm going to stick to this until I can get back on stage.
Well, let me tell my John Perrotta story. So I had been doing, well, first of all, John and Rocking Joe Hebert, or is it mostly Rocking Joe, started the Rhode Island Comedy Hall of Fame. And how many years ago?
Rocking Joe started.
Rocking Joe.
Yeah.
You guys are so, I don't know if you were kind of with him on that, but Rocking Joe, and who's become one of my favorite comics. Ever since they roasted me, I was the first inductee, and I'm proud to say, of the Rhode Island Comedy Hall of Fame. And we always have a roast when the person gets inducted, and Joe would be the Toastmaster, and this. He goes one day, he's busted. Goes, Charlie Hall, folks. One day he's doing a show at the State House. Charlie bombed so bad that Jim Langevin walked out. Oh my God, just one of the funniest things. But Joe got this comedy Hall of Fame going, and I said it because I started. I was one of the beginners, as we talked about in the old days of 1980s when we started. And then I wrote the Ocean State Follies, and I did another version in Massachusetts called Mass Hysteria. And I slowly kind of got out of comedy. I'd won a bunch of awards, best comic from Rhode Island Monthly, and this paper and that paper. But everything kind of churns and changes in the circle of life. And the next thing I noticed is John Perrotta, there's a show at a comedy club in the mall called Stitches in the Rhode Island Mall, in the Providence Place Mall. And they had this comedy club, and it lasted for a little bit. And there was a show of some of the Boston's best acts. And I guess, I don't know, I was there, the host, I did a set, and John Perrotta did a set. And out of all these acts, John Perrotta is the one that kills. He got more laughs than anybody. And so many years ago started the rise of John Perrotta. To this day, no comic gets more laughs per minute than John Perrotta.
I don't know about that, Charlie.
Really? I mean, yeah. I mean, you only last a minute, but still. No, but then you were voted the top comic, right? In the Phoenix or something, or so things change as they should. We all kind of like I said, it's the circle of comedy also.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for my invitation to the Comedy Hall of Fame.
Oh,
I don't see anything here. And
David, it's with the invitation for the Rhode Island Radio Hall of Fame.
Yeah, thank you. They're both in the same mail. I think they both came in the same envelope.
You got to talk to Rock and Joe. He runs the
that's okay.
Comedy Hall
Thanks
of
very
Fame.
much.
Yeah.
Trying to
Rock,
quit.
Yeah, and it's it may be worth mentioning that after me in the Run Comedy Hall of Fame, was it you, John? Were you the next one?
I think I was second. Yeah. Then Frank.
And Frank O'Donnell, Tom Carter, Doreen Collins, the comedy team of Mike Murray and
Bill Simons.
Bill Simons. Who else is in it?
20 for Funds. Yeah.
Is Ace?
Ace got in. Yeah, Ace was in. Ace Aceto. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it. It.
And Joe does a great job with that. And I remember when Tom Carter got inducted, and Joe lets me be the host for a lot of these shows. When Tom Carter did his set at the Comedy Connection, I've never heard, it just blew the roof off, just blew it off. And now you tell me that they may be opening, actually. Is that true?
I saw today they're opening this weekend. I'm not sure if it's just Friday and Saturdays. It's going to be under a tent outside for the summer, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, I just remembered. Wait, hold on. I just remembered, John. You worked at the prison.
Yeah, I was a correctional officer for almost 36 years.
Do you remember when we went and did the show at the prison?
For Eddie? Was it
for Eddie? For Eddie, yeah.
Yeah, no, he had asked me to do it, but because I worked there, I didn't want to really be in it because it was kind of conflict of me working there and then doing the show.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, and again, this is inside baseball, but people who don't do this might find it interesting that second shows are a nightmare. You can get up for the first show, 8 o'clock. They're not quite as drunk as they will be at 10. And you can score great with a routine. Now, yours changes, of course, every night because you work the audience. But the people that have, basic written routines all the time, they'll do it at 8 o'clock and kill. And then at 10 o'clock, they get killed. It's like people, it's awful. Well, Charlie, you remember what I'm talking about here? We went to the ACI and we did a show. I think the first show was at 5. Do you know, John, if it would have been 5 or 6? I think
very captive audience.
Yeah, we were doing 2 shows, one at like 5 and the other one like 6 or 6:30. Anyway, they all came down for the first show and we all scored. It was great. They loved it. And the second show bombed. We all bombed. And we were laughing like crazy because we were saying, second show, 6 o'clock. How can we lose? Well, we did. And I was doing a little bit of John stuff. And I picked on a guy in the audience. Remember, Charlie? And he looked just like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And I started doing well, we won't go there. Anyway, I remember my opening line was, we're just alike. I said, my father was arrested, and he's innocent. You guys are all innocent, right? And I said, my father was innocent. He was standing on a corner, minding his own business, peeling an apple, and a guy ran around the corner and ran into the knife 17 times in the back. But I don't think, and that got a huge opening. Then I had him, and then I could get him.
Yeah.
Second show, nothing.
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 And Tom Carter performed in one of those shows. I remember Eddie told me Tom Carter was in one of them. I don't know which one, but he went up there too.
No, did Eddie get up that night, Charlie?
I think that he did. Yeah, I heard he did. I wasn't there, but Eddie Galvin.
Eddie talking about?
Eddie Galvin.
Oh, okay.
He got up. He got up.
The show. See how Charlie is? He has an agent, forgets his name. See how
No, we also did something for Eddie Regine, I thought.
I don't remember that. I don't think I was invited to that one.
I thought we did. We
did. Ed, no,
I remember doing a bachelor party with Eddie Regine way back.
Oh.
No,
you just reminded me, Charlie, I got to tell him about the night you and I did the bachelor party. Again, this is probably only funny to us, you know.
That's
But
all right. I find it
we-
interesting. Go
We
ahead.
did it. We did a bachelor party. Charlie booked it. And what I used to do before I started doing the dinner theater, I used to do bachelor parties as the priest. I used to do testimonials. I did one for Buddy Cianci one time. And the night of that testimonial for Buddy, on the 6 o'clock news was a big story about how all of the police in Providence, there was a burglary at a clothing store at Providence, and all the cops went in to cover it, and they were taking more clothes than the burglars did. And there was a big controversy about it. And my big line that night was "Nice jacket, Mayor."
Oh man.
Yeah. So anyway, I started to tell the story. So we went to this bachelor thing, and they brought me up as a real priest. They did it, you know, the whoever it was introduced me as an old family friend of the father of the groom, you know.
Yeah.
And I did this thing, and I had this one opening line, which I can do, which I said, I remember the groom, whoever he was, you know, young John, when he was just a little boy, and he came to the rectory, and he knocked on the door, and he said, "Father," he says, "I want to be an altar boy just like the other boys." And I said, "You do, son?" He said, "Yes." He said, "I want to be." And I looked at that boy, couldn't have been more than 11 years old, and I thought to myself, Jesus, what an ugly kid. And it got and there was an F word in there too, I bet. It got the hugest laugh. Remember, right, Chaz?
What an ugly effing kid.
Yeah. Huge laugh. And it got so long, it went on. And then after that, nothing I did worked. Nothing. I couldn't follow my own line. Then Charlie got up.
God.
And Charlie went down to John. The two of us. That was it. One line. That was it. And then he wrapped early. We went out in the car, and we laughed all the way home about how
You guys
how
got
we
paid,
bombed.
right?
Oh yeah, but we laughed. Oh my God, we laughed so hard at how bad that went after that line.
Before we wrap, I got to tell you a bachelor party I did. I usually do really good at bachelor parties. This one bachelor party, this biker, he was 7 feet tall, gigantic, and I weighed 250 at the time. I'm on the mic. I'm at the Edgewood Yacht Club. He comes up. He picks me up. He's got me in the air. Now I'm on the mic, and I'm trying to think. I'm nervous now, right? I'm in the air. He's going by the window. If he throws me in the water, I can't swim. So now I'm up in the air thinking, I'm going to die. This is it. I'm going to die. Then he puts me down, and he's laughing. Everybody's laughing. That's one bachelor party where they got the best of me. You know what I mean? But the guy had me in the air. I tell you, I was nervous, Dave.
Hey, John, I'm going to give you a line.
Yeah.
Every time I worked big crowds like that, tough crowds like that, I used to find the biggest, meanest looking guy in the audience. Charlie knows this. And I'd say, John, what's your name, John? Oh, I really want to thank John, because when I got here tonight, I was late getting here. There were no parking spaces. And John was kind enough to clear a space for me by eating a Buick. And after that, he was my friend. So if anybody gave me any trouble, I'd say, John, take care of this guy.
That's a good move. I like that.
Yeah, I made him my friend right away, and then there was no problem.
Yeah. We got to wrap it up. Dave, you got anything you want to say?
Yeah, I want to say goodbye. Thank you, John, for inviting me.
It was great having you. I loved all the stories. And Charlie, what do you got to say to wrap it up?
Well, John, I want to thank you for being the most gracious host, and I look forward to working with you. We had actually worked together a few times over the past couple of months, and with Rocking Joe, and it was a lot of fun. So I hope somehow that we can get by this and get out there and stop performing, because it's in our blood. And people need to laugh.
That gig we did with myself, Rock and Joe, you and Doreen, where Doreen went to school in Connecticut a while back, that was awesome. What a crowd. What a great crowd.
Right.
We all did well. That was a lot of fun. We'll be back. We'll be back.
If people wonder why we do this, John, if the audience out there, if both of them wonder why we do comedy, because when you're on stage and it's working and you're in control of what's happening, there's no better feeling. And I've gone to mediums, whether you believe in mediums or not. I've gone to 2 or 3 of them, and they all tell me that my job in life is just to make people laugh. That's it. That's just to make people laugh. And so you could say, John, that you and Dave and I, we're doing God's work.
Oh my God.
On that note, I want to thank you guys for coming on. You guys have been awesome, man. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, John.
Ta-ta.